Hey, greetings founders. Welcome to Feel the Boot, the science of startups. I'm your host, Lance Cottrell, and I'm here to help you navigate the nearly vertical learning curve you're going to encounter as you start your business. I've seen it all before, I've been there, I started my own company, and I've advised countless other founders through their processes. And I want to help you avoid the mistakes and learn what you need to know to be successful. In this episode, I talk to Profitability Master Ruth King. She's an award-winning author of 5 books, including The Courage to be Profitable and Profit or Wealth. We're going to be talking about a variety of topics, very practically, around starting a company, particularly a phase that she sees most companies go through that she calls no man's land, how to recognize it, and how to climb out of that particular quagmire. Ruth King, welcome to Feel the Boot.
Thanks, Lance, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on because I think you've got a somewhat unusual way of thinking about the lifestyle of a startup. And so I thought maybe we'd just start off by kind of having you talk about what that is and how you see that progressing.
Okay. So I look at a startup as, somebody's got this really, really great idea for a business, and they talk to their friends and they go, oh, you should do that business. And they get talking to their friends, and more of their friends say, you should do that business. And they don't talk to people who know about business. There's totally difference between talking to friends and talking to people who actually know something about business. And the question that I always tell people to say, or the thing that I always tell people when somebody says, oh, you should do this, I said, fine, would you be willing to invest? And then we really see what they think of the idea. Well, no.
That's right. It makes you get serious when someone's asking you to put cash down. I really resemble your description of someone who's starting a business without any real knowledge of business or talking to people about business. It makes things challenging. So where do you go from there?
All right, so you've got this great idea. Then go out and get a customer. And the customer should not be your mother, should not be your sister, should not be your best friend. It should be somebody who can be a real customer, somebody who you can satisfy a need for and do things that they would be happy to pay money for. And at that point, once you have a customer, somebody's raised their hand and they've basically said, hey, I'm willing to pay money for this, and this is why I'm willing to pay money for this. And so you have some ideas at that point that you can use in marketing. Well, why did you buy our product? Why did you use our service? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? And most people are more than happy to give you their thoughts and suggestions after they've used it and had experience with your company. But unfortunately, a lot of people just don't ask. Ask the question. Most of them will be happy to give you that information. And guess what? You then can use it. It becomes a testimonial for your company. And obviously you get their permission to use it as a testimonial. And then you're in a situation where you have marketing pieces to go to other people who are like them. So if you find that everybody who's loved your product is 50-year-old women or older, then guess where you should target your marketing? 50-year-old women or older. Don't go after your daughter's friends. It just, doesn't work that way.
That's right. You're not going to find that audience on TikTok. Go find them where they're going to
be. No, not if it's 50 years old or older women. So, and you might find that it's guys. You might find it's young men between the ages of 20 and 29 is your target audience, or young men who are doing a specific type of exercise or are reading a specific type of book, or any number of things where you can really find out who is using your products and services and what makes them alike. It might be age, it might be demographics, it might be that they have the same hobby. I always talk about one of my clients who is now since retired, and he and I were both in our 30s at the time, and there was a radio station on Hilton Head Island, which is a small island off of Savannah, Georgia, and it had a lot of plantations where really, really, really wealthy people lived. And there was one radio station on that island called WLOW, and it was called the 50 to Dead station. Now, I'm in my 30s, so I can call it a 50 to Dead station because they played big band era music and music that really was appropriate for the people on that island who had money and who listened to it. So we ended up sponsoring the 920, I think it was 920 stock market report every Thursday morning for this particular company. And the owner looked at me and says, I'm not doing that. I said, why not? He said, because I don't listen to the station. I said, it doesn't matter whether you listen to it. It matters whether your customer base listens to it. And so, he went like this. And, 9:22, the phone started ringing every Thursday morning. And he did it because he was paying me to do that type of thing and to help him grow his business. But it turned out he renewed the contract the following year, and he just looked at me and he said, shut up, I do not want to hear it. Okay. So, a lot of times with what we do is, first of all, making sure your marketing is right. And then we also have to make sure that your pricing is right. And unfortunately, I work with most companies who get in trouble because in the beginning they don't know what they don't know, and it's a lot of times it's way too early in the process because they don't understand a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet. There's tons of books there, including mine, The Courage to be Profitable and Profit or Wealth. But there are lots of courses you can take. One of my very first client was a florist, and she had a bookkeeping company who was doing her books, and she'd get the financial statement, profit and loss statement and balance sheet at the end of every month, and then she'd look at it, oh good, I made a profit, threw it in a drawer. Didn't look at any other number, all right? So she started having cash flow problems, and she says, wait a minute, I'm this profitable company. So she called me, smart enough to do that, and I went through everything, and I said, what is this, what is this, what is this? And she gave me this blank, deer in the headlights stare. And so I said, go ask them. Well, it turned out whenever they didn't know what something was, instead of asking her, they put it in miscellaneous sales. So she always had a profit. She fired him, obviously. And I made her take a bookkeeping course on, in the old days, you went to a classroom. It wasn't done online. And she said it was the 3 most miserable months of her life, but she learned enough to question. And that's all I ask any business owner to do. I don't expect you to be a CPA or a bookkeeper and get into the minutiae of debits and credits and stuff like that. You have to take what your bookkeeper or your CPA produces, look at it, and make sure it makes sense. And if it doesn't, start asking questions where the numbers came from. And then at that point, you're either going to see that they're right or they're wrong, but you know enough to question.
That's perfect.
So,
I give similar advice for non-technical founders that are doing technical startups. Like, you don't need to be a programmer, but you need to know enough to be able to ask pointed questions and recognize when someone's blowing smoke at you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, that's the profit and loss and balance sheet. And then you have to understand a little bit about pricing. I find that many small business owners are afraid to price what a product is worth. They think they can do it for X because their competitor is doing it for X plus 10. And, stop thinking price, start thinking value. Just because they can do it for X plus 10 doesn't mean that you can.
Do you think it's a lack of confidence? What do you think causes people to sort of underprice their products?
They think that people will buy strictly on price. And it's proven, and I don't remember who did the study, and I think it was 17% of the population will always buy on price no matter what. I mean, there's 83% who won't. Those 17% are probably not your customers. They're probably going to go to the cheapest store, the cheapest place, the cheapest grocery store, and whatever else it is. But the remaining 83% buy in varying proportions on value. And if people don't understand the difference between two companies, it will always go down to price. If they understand that you're providing them X, Y, and Z, and your competitor's only providing X, well, yeah, since you're providing Y and Z, and I need Y and Z, I'm willing to pay more for that. And companies who are totally focused on price can't understand why a company might be a customer would pay more than they were pricing for it. They should be thinking, I left X number of dollars on the table, is what they should be thinking.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's some customers that you just don't want to have, and in many cases, you'd be far better off letting your competitor deal with those while you harvest the more profitable ones who really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, I call them firing with ruthless compassion. And since my name is Ruth, I can get away with that.
Nice. So where does that trajectory go? And what are the big inflection points that the founders need to be thinking about?
Starting up is great. Everybody's excited and everything else like that. And then you get to the point where you can't do it by yourself or with a couple of employees. And then you have to start adding overhead. You have to start adding an infrastructure for additional people, for rent, utility bills, marketing and advertising, CPAs and travel and entertainment and all that sort of fun stuff. Excuse me. You'll hit a point which I call no man's land, which means that you have to add overhead to be able to go to the next level. You'll know when you're there. I mean, you'll be totally frustrated because you're working harder and you're not making as much money or as much profitability, and you're just like, "Urgh." And you have to add overhead and people and things to be able to take you to the next level. That is the first, that's a level of no man's land, i.e., we have to add the overhead. You're going to make less money, but once you add this layer of overhead, you might be able to grow, 10 times. Different industries have different levels and different times of no man's land, but every industry has where you hit the wall at some level of revenue, and you have to add overhead, which affects your profits. But look at the long term, that level of overhead will actually allow you to grow that much more. And there's some industries where you actually hit two levels of it. You might hit a lower level of it when you're adding people for the first time and everything seems to be going great again. And then you're going to hit another level of it where you put in a formal management team, and that management team then takes it to a third level, even higher. So, depending upon what industry you're in, you'll probably hit no man's land at some point in time.
And how do you think different industries, do you think this is a harder thing to overcome for some than others? And how do you suggest people wrap their heads around taking kind of that bitter pill that they're going to have to take that reduction for a short time to get the longer term win?
The first thing is to recognize you're going through it. And then you're going, this is no man's land. I know I have to get through this, okay? There are different ways to grow through it depending upon your industry. One of the best ways to grow through it is with what I call recurring revenue. And we all participate in recurring revenue. If we have a Netflix account, if we have a cell phone account or a mobile phone account, if we have a gym membership, and we are all part of recurring revenue for somebody. So figure out what in your company you can do with respect to recurring revenue and offer that to your customers, and they pay you every month, every quarter, whatever else it is. Or you can do it as they do it in the restaurant industry, where you have the birthday club or the anniversary club, where you have their birthday or an anniversary date or both, and you send them a coupon, say, celebrate your anniversary with us. You as the birthday person's meal is free as long as you have one or two people with you and they pay, for their meals. And so you go because your meal's free. So that's a way of doing recurring revenue to get people in restaurants without, them paying for it. They're basically allowing you to market to them by them giving you anniversary dates and birth dates and things along those lines. The old famous one is Book of the Month Club. I mean, if you remember that, and then they had the audio, what was it? Columbia Records, I think, did one where you stuck a penny in and you got 12 records over a 12-month period of time that you could choose from, and they sent you records every single month. Same, that's recurring revenue. They built a phenomenal business on that. Book of the Month Club has been copied, stolen, whatever you want to do it, call it. But, people have a Cake of the Month Club, they're a baker, or the Tea of the Month Club, or, if you're in the home services business, you might have a plumbing maintenance plan, or a heating and air maintenance plan, or a pest control maintenance plan. So I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it depending upon what your industry is in. But the best way I know of to get out of no man's land is to figure whatever that is out, get everybody to sign up for it, because it gives you enough revenue to overcome overhead issues. And the goal is for the recurring revenue to take care of all the overhead of your company.
Yeah, I love
Good
that.
times or bad.
Subscription models are so powerful. Partly, for me, it's the flywheel effect. That you're not needing to resell someone every time. Once you get them on, they then just become part of that momentum, and each new person you add in just kind of increases the speed of that wheel, and you've got some visibility of what your revenues are going to be. Right? It's not that you need to sell everyone every month and you're starting from scratch. You're really starting with most of your revenue already booked, and now it's how much more can you bring onto that?
Yep. Yeah, and they do the referrals. There's trust and loyalty. I mean, there's lots of reasons for doing that. And, if you come out with a new product, guess who you're going to go to first? Your subscription people or your recurring revenue people. They both mean exactly the same thing. And that's who you're going to go to first. And guess what? They can be your guinea pigs and tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. They will.
That's right.
I promise.
Right, but you already have a relationship. They trust you to some extent. You know them. They're
Yeah.
often willing to work with you. When it comes back to right where you started, with talking to your customers and getting that feedback, getting that interaction, that's something that never should stop. So
absolutely.
When someone's coming along, they're just running the business. What are the best indicators to help you be aware of that? What should people be looking for so that they catch the coming into this sort of situation, this no man's land, as quickly as possible?
Essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to graph your P&L every month, and you're going to graph your balance sheet ratios every single month, and they will tell you right then and there. You're going to see, basically profits going down on a long-term basis, and you'll see it, and from a graphical perspective, revenues will hit a plateau, profits will decrease, overhead will increase, and direct costs, depending upon how you price your products, may follow revenue and they may not. It kind of depends on your industry and how you price, but you'll see it on a trailing P&L data. You will absolutely see it, and you'll see it on your balance sheet. There's a ratio called the current ratio, which is current assets, things that are cash are turned into cash within a year, i.e. cash, accounts receivable, inventory, prepaid expenses, basically, and divided by current liabilities, or things that have to be paid within a year. And as a general rule, increasing current ratio means increasing profitability. Decreasing current ratio means decreasing profitability. And you're going to have a decreasing current ratio when you start hitting no man's land. The signs are absolutely there. And then you're going to go, whatever terminology you want to use after the O. I know where I am. Okay, here's how I have to get out of it. Most of us have to grow out of it profitably. Grow your revenues with profit.
Do you have any advice? So we talked a little bit about going for recurring revenues. Do you have any other advice for how people can focus on growing past the no man's land?
Yeah, that is generally, the recurring revenue is one way to do it. The second thing is to go reactivate all of your inactive customers. Every one of us, including me, has customers that we've worked with years past, or months past, or 5 years past, or whatever. Go talk to them. See whether you can entice them back with a special offer, a coupon, whatever. Most of them will say, "Well, I thought you went out of business because you didn't talk to me. Never heard from you." So that's a very quick way to grow out of no man's land, is to reactivate your inactive customers.
And of course, I guess part of the challenge with the overhead is that to handle this surge of customers, to get the kind of growth you need to be hiring more people, which is adding to your expense line.
Overhead, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But then the overhead will settle. Because let's assume your no man's land is around $1 million, because I can do that number in my head. And to grow out of no man's land, we have to grow to at least $1.2 million, for example. That $1 million of overhead, probably depending upon your industry, can allow you to grow to maybe $3 million if that's where you want to go, without adding any more overhead. So, I mean, once you add that level, you're probably going to be able to exponentially grow your company with that same level. And then you might hit another level of no man's land, let's say at $3 million. You got to add more overhead, but that might take you to 10. So you really and truly don't know. It's dependent upon what industry that you're in.
Every business is totally
where
unique.
the numbers actually are.
What challenges do you see founders have when they're trying to bring on that additional staffing? Is that something that they're able to do pretty easily, or are there challenges with handing off those responsibilities?
They should have a job description. They should have what I call key performance indicators, i.e. here's the minimum that's expected. They should have communications with that employee, i.e. here's your KPIs or key performance indicators. You met them, you didn't meet them, you exceeded them. What bonuses do you get for exceeding them? If you're not meeting them, what do we need to do to help you to get to the minimum KPIs? So everybody who's who's employed by you should know how they fit into the company, what's expected from them from a key performance indicator basis, and communicated with as to whether they're making goal or not.
I'm amazed by how often people don't have really clearly articulated sort of definitions of what is this job about and what does success look like. How do you know if you're actually achieving what you're supposed to? Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's what I call a key performance indicator.
What should a founder do if they're in this situation? They're trying to climb out, but it doesn't seem like they're getting there. Right? The numbers aren't necessarily going great. They're kind of feeling like they're backsliding. Do you recommend that they sort of fall back to where they were and retrench, get stable, and then move forward again, or do you double down? What's your suggestion?
Yeah. All right. When you hit no man's land, you have two options. You can grow out of it or you can shrink. Some people can't handle, more and more people. That's just not their style. And that's fine. You shrink to where you can handle it. Other people are like, yeah, let's go. And, they build these, phenomenally large companies. But there are a lot of people who they like the company at the size it was. And they said, yeah, let me try growing. And they find they don't like growth and they shrink back to where they were. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. You have two options at that point. Grow out of it or shrink. And there's not a right answer to it. It's how you feel about having a whole lot of people around you and actually doing all the KPIs and doing the communications and doing the reviews and doing the things that have to happen.
In your
when you
experience,
have
is it
all those
usually that
extra
kind
people.
of that human resources management thing where you're moving from doing the work yourself to now organizing other people to do the work and you're abstracted?
Yeah, and usually owners who were doing and then now they are overseeing long for the day when they were doing it. When the days go really, really, really wrong, it's like, I wish it was back when it was $500,000 in size and I was running the whole company myself. You get that. But in the aggregate, in the overall, a lot of them just say that when they get frustrated. But reality was they're achieving more and more goals that they want to achieve because they've grown the company. So it's just a situation where they can look at it and go, okay, yeah, it was a bad day. Yeah, I would have preferred, for that one day being back the way it was. But, let's look at the big picture here and remember why you're growing
some
it.
of my early
what,
hires,
the goal is.
the frustration when you're bringing someone in to take a responsibility off your shoulders, but they don't do it as well as you did. And you've got,
they never will
but you
do
still
it
got to
as
do
well
it,
as you
right?
do it. Ever.
You can't do
Forget
it all.
it.
You don't scale well.
Yeah. Yeah. What's really, really, really hard is your first employee does really, really well up to a certain level of growth and can't handle growth past that. And, people, it's often been said that people rise to their level of incompetence, which is the Peter Principle. And firing that very first employee who got you where you are today hurts like crazy. But it has to be done for the good of the business because they're holding the business back. And I promise you that hurts. That hurts worse than firing a person who wasn't doing their job You're firing the person who helps you get where you are today, but is not capable of getting you past no man's land or the next level.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I see that happen a lot.
tough.
I experience this with the companies I advise,
That's
where they'll
really
bring someone in, and also often with a really high title. They're senior VP of engineering, but really they're a coder. And you get to a point where that person needs to be an amazing manager and administrator. And now you've got to demote them or fire them and bring someone in, and
Can't handle it.
It's always painful.
That's hard. That's
At the same
really
time,
hard.
I remember the best day
That's
ever
really
in my
hard.
company was when my personal pager, it was back then, was no longer part of the technical response loop anymore, right? It just never went off. Like, so good.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Right,
And then you never want to go back to having that pager again, right?
You start to really appreciate having that buffer of other people. And at the end of the day, they are better at doing what I did than I do. I know the people I hired as programmers were way better after a couple of months. It's part of that valley, I think, is the people you bring in learn it. Yeah, exactly.
They have to learn it. Yeah. Yeah. And as long as you give them clear expectations and you agree on clear goals, clear performance indicators, and the feedback loop that they prefer. I mean, there's some people who just want you to come sit at their desk and go, "You didn't make it." And then there's other people who say, "Look, well, how do you think you did this week?" And it is a conversation. So you have to learn the personality styles of the people that you're managing. And the reality is that different people communicate different ways, and you can deliver the same message 6 different ways to 6 different people with 6 different personality styles, and they all get it because you delivered the message so that they heard it. Not like you were for some people, like if you come in like this, carrying this really big stick and going, "Oh my gosh, you just screwed up this week." Some people will just freak out and just go blank, and they'll not hear another word that you said.
Right.
Others will say, "Yeah, I screwed up."
And I think this is one of those skills that is really challenging for a lot of founders, because they were experts at doing whatever the business was, but this is a totally different skill set that they need to master. Do you actually have advice for founders for how they can try to acquire those kind of soft skills?
One of the best books I've ever read on management was written by Kevin Armstrong, called The Miracle Manager. And I give that to all of my clients who are into the management piece. Some of it's mid-level managers, some of it's owners in smaller companies. But go read that book. It will help you a lot. And when I teach my leadership skills classes, I use that book as a textbook.
I'll make sure and put a link to that down in the show notes on this.
Yeah.
So do you have
Kevin
any
will
thoughts?
appreciate it.
How can founders be more self-aware about whether they want that sort of growth model, get big, get lots of employees, versus that they should kind of rethink their expectations and build a company that's really more appropriate for what they actually want?
Yeah, they have to decide what they want. I mean, if you want a lifestyle business where you don't have many employees and you just worry about making sure cash flow comes in to support your lifestyle, that's terrific. Just recognize that's what you want and close your ears when everybody says grow, 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 grow. There's other businesses that get started or that get bought where they have, okay, this business is going to be a tool for me to be able to do X. And in order for me to be able to do X, I have to grow this business to this level of revenue, and I have to grow to the business for this level of profitability, and I have to build my cash to Y and sell it at some point. Generally people with lifestyle businesses don't sell their businesses. They just kind of retire with them. But they're happy. I mean, it's not to say one type of business is better than another. It's just what you want.
And the big exit doesn't always mean
And
a big
all of us
paycheck for the
want different
founders,
things.
depending on what the journey was like and the investment rounds.
No.
There is sort of an interesting waterfall moment, though, when you do start taking that outside investment, and that you are kind of, at that point, committing to go the growth to exit route.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not an option at that point. It absolutely is not an option. And some people don't do well with it. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the stories and read about the stories, but really, really, really bright entrepreneurs start a business, take it to a certain level of growth, get outside investment, and then can't handle the management, so the outside investors fire them, and they go and start something else, build it to a level. Managers take over and they're gone. I mean, and that's their cycle, okay, and that's okay.
I think
that's what they want to do.
When I hear the stories, it's usually from someone who's pretty resentful about the process. But I mean, it can work. It can work great. I remember about 5 years into my startup, the board of directors approached me and said, "You need to bring someone in who really has some background in business. You're doing." That's right. You're doing pretty well as a astronomy dropout.
And management, and leadership. Yeah.
You need something else. And fortunately, I was able to find someone. And recruit them and and it was a fantastic relationship, and we worked together for many years. But
yeah, and you were comfortable with that person. It's a lot easier for you to find that person and have the board be happy with that person. Then they find a person that you absolutely hate.
This person's been
that
imposed
never
on
works
you.
well.
You
You're
resent
usually
it.
gone.
They know you resent it. Right. That's going to be on a short fuse. Whereas if you can embrace it, realize, and I guess know your own weaknesses and appreciate how that synergy is going to work, then that can be a win-win. I'm still really good friends with this guy many, many years later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any other advice?
Any
key thoughts you have? I think we're sort of beginning to come to an end here.
One of the things that I always suggest to owners, I mean, you can have a profitable company and still go bankrupt. The COVID just did this. I mean, look at how many restaurants went bankrupt. I mean, they were very profitable restaurants, but when everything closes down and people don't go to restaurants, you have a problem. Or I had one of my clients who had 80% of his customers were in restaurants. So, I mean, he would have been toast. So you have to be able to pivot. My rule is no more than 20% of your revenues come from any one industry or any one customer. Because if something happens, then it won't kill you, generally. And then I always suggest that you save 1% of every dollar that comes in the door as your rainy day fund, as your ability to sleep better at night, however you want to call it. If you get a check in the door for $1,000, and that's $10 you put away.
It gives you that crisis
cushion. Not a
cushion.
whole lot, but it does add up, and it will add up. Yeah, exactly, and do it. It's not hard to do. It just
that's right. Yeah, make it all automatic.
You can tell your bookkeeper to do it.
Of course, it's when things go wrong that suddenly that line of credit that you had suddenly gets pulled, because no one wants to give you money if you need money. Exactly. Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah, that's why you have your own line of credit. I've had two banks over the years change management philosophies, and two business owners with lines of credit who were, within compliance. They were, 30 days, no need of the loan, whatever else it is, had their lines called for no reason. And because the management changed, they didn't like those loans anymore. And it was in a point of time where they had actually borrowed against the line, and they had 30 days to pay it back. And sometimes you can't do it if it's in the middle of the season, slow season.
It's always going to be
so, be your own line of credit. Yeah.
All right. Well, fantastic. That's really good concrete advice, I think. People can prepare for that sort of thing. It's glib to say expect the unexpected, but there's just always surprises and hard times.
Have enough money that you can sleep well at night. That's the key. And just keep it there. Don't get tempted to touch it when it gets large. It's your rainy day account. You never ever know. And if you go to the big boys toy store, the big girls toy store.
That's right.
That's
then
not
the
a
next
good
week
idea
there's a bump and
to
suddenly
use that money for that.
Yeah, you can't turn that Ferrari back into useful capital.
Yep. I have this.
All right. Well, fantastic. I really appreciate you
exactly.
coming on. I think this was great information for the founders, and thanks for joining us on Feel the Boot.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching this episode. I hope you found it useful and interesting. And if you're getting value out of this, I'd really appreciate it if you could do me a favor. Like this episode. It tells the algorithm that this is the kind of content that you're interested in, and people like you are interested in. And I'm trying to help as many founders as I possibly can. I also encourage you to come over to feeltheboot.com and sign up for Boot Prints, our newsletter. That's where I distribute a link where you can sign up for one-on-one coaching with me. It's all free. Also, if you want to meet some other people who follow the way of the boot, come over to the Feel the Boot Founders Alliance Facebook group. I'll put links to all of that down in the description. Till next time, ciao.